The kidnapping that shook the stars. The dim glow of the orbital colony's emergency lights flickered as the last shift of the day ended. The colony, named Eden's Reach, was a thriving outpost on the fringe of human space, a beacon of civilization in an otherwise lawless sector. It was a place where families had made their home, where children played in artificial parks under simulated sunlight, where parents believed in the promise of a future among the stars. That belief was about to be shattered. Deep in the industrial district, where the colony's oxygen generators hummed and storage depots held months' worth of supplies, a shadow moved. It was not a mistake, nor a glitch in the security system. It was a calculated, deliberate breach. And it was only the beginning. The Raiders' strike. Captain Raxerven of the Crest Alliance exhaled sharply, his twin sets of mandibles clicking with satisfaction as he surveyed the holographic map before him. His team, seasoned black market slavers, mercenaries, and ex-military operatives, was already in position. The human colony was ill-prepared for an attack like this. After all, humans thought themselves protected by the very laws of the Galactic Council. They were wrong. Ven's team had infiltrated countless colonies before, stealing resources, capturing workers, taking whatever they wanted before vanishing into deep space. Tonight was no different, except for one thing. They weren't here for supplies. They were here for children. Human young were rare in the intergalactic slave trade. Their species didn't often fall victim to raids, and their colonies were notoriously difficult to breach. But a single human child, sold to the right buyer, was worth more than 100 crates of plasma ore. Alpha Team, in position. The voice of his second-in-command, Zethus, crackled through the comms. Proceed. The stealth ship hovered above the colony's education sector, its cloaking device concealing it from long-range scans. Below, the Academy's dormitories housed over 30 children, all between the ages of 6 and 12. Prime targets. The plan was simple. Gas the dormitory. Load the stasis pods. Leave before anyone notices. Ven's mandibles curled into a smug grin. Humans are so fragile, he thought. They would never see it coming. The first mistake. Tawny Greaves, age 10, sat alone in the Academy's observation deck, staring out into space. He had always been fascinated by the stars, by the endless void beyond the colony's artificial sky. He loved to imagine himself flying between the planets, discovering new worlds, becoming an explorer like the heroes in his holobooks. But tonight, something felt off. A strange hum vibrated through the walls, the kind of sound that wasn't part of the normal station activity. Tommy frowned, squinting through the reinforced glass. Something was there, a shadow, barely visible, hovering above the Academy. His gut twisted. That wasn't normal. Before he could think, his fingers instinctively reached for the emergency beacon clipped to his wrist. Every child in the colony had one, a direct line to their parents and local security. It was something his mom had given him, something that came with the warning. Only press it if you're in real danger. His breath caught. Was this real danger? Then the Academy's lights flickered, and a hissing sound filled the air vents. Tommy's stomach dropped. Yes, this was danger. He slammed his fist down on the beacon. The moment he did, all hell broke loose. The colony's response, a signal no one ignored. Governor Erin Vasquez had just settled into her quarters when the alarm blared. Not the usual routine disturbance alert, not a trade conflict signal, but something far worse. A code Alpha 1. Her blood ran cold. That classification wasn't for pirate raids. It wasn't for terrorist threats. It was for one thing, and one thing only. A direct, active threat to human children. Vasquez didn't hesitate. She activated the emergency relay, connecting directly to the Terran Defense Network. Her voice was steady, but edged with fury. This is Governor Vasquez of Eden's Reach. We have an Alpha 1 emergency. I repeat, human children have been taken. We require immediate intervention. The response was instantaneous. Acknowledged. dispatching all available forces. Stand by. And then came something far more chilling, a transmission not from Earth's central government, but from military sectors across human space. It was a simple, three-word message. Protocol activated. A galaxy-wide shockwave. Within minutes, the classified emergency beacon reached every corner of known space. Human merchant ships immediately changed course, blocking trade lanes near Crest Alliance space. Human diplomats walked out of council meetings without a word. Civilian transports volunteered their engines for military operations. Everywhere, humanity's response was the same. Total, unquestioning mobilization. Across the Galactic Council, the reactions from other species varied. Some were confused, others curious. But those who had lived long enough to remember history, they were terrified. The last time this happened, Ambassador Jorel Vex of the ancient Arcturan Collective stared at the report with a growing sense of horror. It had been 300 years since the last Pariente Protocol had been activated. 3 centuries ago, a group of raiders had taken 2 human children from a Terran colony. Back then, the galaxy had laughed, believing the humans to be just another primitive species. That mistake had cost them entire civilizations. Vex whispered to himself, horror rising in his voice. They don't just protect their children. They annihilate anyone who threatens them. A hunt begins. On the Crest Alliance slaver ship, Captain Van leaned back in his chair, blissfully unaware of the chaos he had unleashed. His second-in-command, Zethus, frowned at the incoming transmissions. Captain. I think something's wrong. Van chuckled. Relax. By the time the humans figure out what happened, we'll be 3 jump points away. Zethus swallowed, eyes locked onto the growing alert system on the screen. That's the thing, Captain. They already know. Then, the entire ship shuddered, not from weapons fire, not from a collision, but from the presence of something vast, something unseen. Outside, beyond their view, an armada was moving. The hunt had begun. The hunt begins. A galaxy-wide tremor. The Crest Alliance slaver ship, Shadowfang, drifted through the void, silent and invisible to most long-range sensors. The crew believed they had escaped undetected, their stolen cargo of human children safely locked away in stasis pods. They were already plotting their next jump, expecting to disappear into the vastness of uncharted space. But they had underestimated the gravity of their crime. At that very moment, across every human colony, station, and fleet, the parent protocol had been activated. The response was immediate. It wasn't just military action. It was cultural, psychological, and absolute. The last time someone took a human child. On the Galactic Council's capital world, Ambassador Rylus Dren of the Zerani Federation paced anxiously in his chambers, scrolling through reports flooding in from his intelligence network. He had seen this before. 3 centuries ago, during the early expansion era, an alien raiding faction had kidnapped a handful of human children from a fledgling colony. It had been a mistake unlike any other. Within a week, the pirates had been eradicated, not just defeated, not just captured, but systematically erased from existence. Within 2 weeks, every station or faction that had ever traded with them was gone. Within a month, the entire region where they had operated was a smoldering ruin, marked as an eternal warning to the galaxy. The humans had a terrifying way of waging war when their children were involved. They didn't negotiate. They didn't retaliate. They eliminated threats. Now history was repeating itself. Rylus turned to his assistant, voice trembling. Send an immediate transmission to all Zerani colonies. No vessels are to interfere with human operations. Clear their paths. Whatever they do next, we do not stand in their way. The assistant hesitated. Sir, isn't that extreme? Rylus met his gaze, his voice low. No, it's survival. The slavers begin to realize their fate. On the Shadowfang, Captain Raxer Van reclined in his command chair, completely unaware of the firestorm he had ignited. His crew moved efficiently, preparing for their third and final jump to Station 9, a secret outpost known for its illegal auctions of rare sentience. They had stolen 12 human children. They would be worth a fortune. His second-in-command, Zethus, wasn't as confident. The reptilian alien's claws drummed nervously against the console. "Captain, we're receiving unusual transmissions from our usual trade partners." Ven scoffed. "Let me guess. They're raising their prices again." Zethus shook his head, eyes narrowing at the incoming messages. "No, they're cutting contact." Ven's mandibles twitched. "What?" Zethus brought up a holo display. Messages flashed rapidly across the screen. "To notorious ALINC operations. Do note trade with human cargo. Do note AIDCRIS vessels. Stay away from human space." Ven leaned forward, his amusement fading. "What is this? A blockade?" Zethus swallowed. "No, it's worse. They're abandoning us." The reality sank in. The moment the parent protocol had been activated, every faction, every black market dealer, every neutral force in the galaxy had made a decision. Stay out of humanity's way. Because if they didn't, they wouldn't survive what was coming. The Silent Fleet. Humanity's official military fleets were already powerful, a well-coordinated force known for precision, discipline, and brutal efficiency in combat. But the fleet now mobilizing wasn't official. It was something older, darker. Deep within Sol space, a network of hidden warships, Black Ops strike teams, and privateer fleets activated at once. These were the ghosts, the ones who never spoke in council meetings, who never showed up on official records. These were humanity's unspoken weapons. They did not wage war for resources. They did not fight for political reasons. They existed for one purpose only: to hunt down anyone who thought they could prey on human children. Admiral Jonas Greaves, a retired officer who had once commanded Earth's most classified warfleet, stood on the bridge of the Revenant, humanity's most advanced stealth warship. He gazed coldly at the coordinates of the fleeing slavers. "Do they know?" his second-in-command asked. Jonas exhaled slowly. "Not yet." He opened a secure channel, broadcasting only 2 words to the fleet: "Begin pursuit." The slavers try to run. The Shadow Fang reached its final jump point. The crew cheered, believing they had escaped. Captain Ven grinned, standing triumphantly. "See, humans aren't as terrifying as the stories say. We're still breathing." That was when the sensors failed. The lights dimmed. The engines stuttered. Zethus's eyes widened in terror as he stared at the readings. "Captain, something is here." Ven's grin faltered. "What?" "There's nothing on sensors." Zethus shook his head, voice trembling. "Exactly." And then, without warning, the first ship appeared. Not from hyperspace, not from cloaking. It was just there, as if it had been waiting. A black warship, angular and silent, its hull absorbing all light, a predator lurking in the abyss. Then came another. Then 2 more. Then 20. Ven staggered back, his mandibles clicking in disbelief. "Impossible." A transmission crackled through the ship's comms, a voice cold and sharp as a blade spoke. "Crest Alliance vessel. You are in violation of parent protocol. Your crimes have been recorded. There is no escape. There is no surrender. You took human children. You die here." Before Ven could react, before he could even begin to process what was happening, the Revenant opened fire. The first strike. There was no dramatic battle. No exchanging of firepower. The human fleet didn't need it. They had already won. Within seconds, the Shadow Fang's shields collapsed under the weight of the attack. Its weapons were rendered useless. Its engines were torn apart. Ven screamed as the ship shook violently, power failing, alarms blaring. The children in stasis remained untouched, because the humans had calculated every strike to disable the slavers without harming the cargo. That was the terrifying part. This wasn't a battle. This was an execution. As the Shadow Fang drifted, crippled, broken, Ven watched in horror as the largest human warship approached. A behemoth of black metal, its hull unmarked, its presence absolute. And then, the final transmission came through. The hunt is over. You belong to us now. No mercy for those who prey on the young. The end of the Shadow Fang. Captain Raxer Ven had fought in countless battles, led dozens of raids across the Outer Rim, and survived wars that had turned entire planets into ashes and ruin. But never, not once in his bloody, mercenary-filled career, had he felt this level of absolute terror. His ship was dead. The Shadow Fang hung in the void, crippled and powerless, as the black warships of humanity surrounded it in perfect, silent formation. They moved with an unsettling precision, neither too fast nor too slow. Predators circling a helpless kill. Ven clutched the edge of his command chair, his mind scrambling for solutions. They couldn't fight. Their weapons had been surgically disabled before they had even fired a shot. They couldn't flee. The humans had somehow disabled their jump drive remotely, an act that should have been impossible. And worst of all, they couldn't even surrender. The human fleet had not responded to their distress signals, their pleas for negotiations, their desperate attempts to transmit false claims of innocence. The silence was more terrifying than any war cry. Ven turned to his second-in-command, Zethus, whose reptilian skin had lost all color. "Hail them again," Ven hissed. "Tell them we will return the children. No, we will return them with compensation. They want money, right?" Zethus didn't move. He simply pointed to the central screen, his hands trembling. The humans had responded, but not with words. A video feed appeared on their monitors, broadcasted from the Terran flagship. It was not a threat. It was not a declaration of war. It was something far, far worse. It was a live feed of the children. The stasis pods open. Inside the Shadow Fang's cargo bay, 12 stasis pods hissed open in unison. The kidnapped human children stirred, groggy from the effects of cryosleep. The oldest child, a dark-haired boy named James, sat up first, blinking rapidly. Confusion turned to fear as he took in his surroundings. The cold, metallic walls, the dim red emergency lighting, the distant hum of failing engines. He wasn't in Eden's reach anymore. Then the alarms blared. Intruders detected in cargo bay. James whirled around just in time to see the airlock doors open, and what stood beyond them was something he would never forget. A group of heavily armored soldiers, clad in black exosuits, stepped into the room. Their helmets bore no insignia. Their movements were silent and efficient. They were human. One of the soldiers knelt before James, his voice gentle yet firm. "You're safe now." James burst into tears. The human strike team arrives. The black armored soldiers move through the ship with terrifying precision, their weapons never needing to fire, their footsteps silent as ghosts. They didn't bother with most of the slaver crew. The Shadow Fang soldiers didn't resist. They had seen what the humans had done to their ship. They had felt their weapons shut down without a fight. They knew this was not a war they could win. Instead, they dropped their weapons and fell to their knees as the Terran strike teams passed them by. Because they weren't here for prisoners. They were only here for the children. And for vengeance. Captain Ven's last mistake. On the bridge, Raxer Ven watched in horror as his security feeds went dark, one by one. He saw his mercenaries surrender, saw his elite guards disarmed in seconds, saw the human soldiers moving through his ship like they had built it themselves. He knew it was over. But he refused to go down begging. His mandibles clicking with rage, he grabbed his sidearm, aimed it at the nearest human soldier, and roared, "You think you can walk onto my ship like you own it?" He fired. A single shot. The human soldier did not move. The bullet, a high-density plasma round capable of melting through starship hulls, stopped inches before hitting the soldier's visor. It hung in the air for a second, then disintegrated into nothing. Ven's mandibles twitched in shock. To view what? What is this sorcery? The soldier finally moved. He tilted his helmet slightly, his voice mechanical, distorted, and impossibly calm. "Do you really think we came here unprepared?" And then, before Ven could move, before he could scream, before he could beg, the human soldier grabbed him by the throat and lifted him off the ground. Ven thrashed, his forearms clawing at the soldier's armor. It was useless. He had raided hundreds of colonies. He had fought in wars across the Outer Rim. He had thought humans were just another weak species to exploit. He had never been more wrong. The soldier's grip tightened. And then, darkness. The final transmission. Back on Luna Command Station, Admiral Helena Drake watched as the battle report finalized. The Shadow Fang was secured. The children were safe. The Crest Alliance's greatest slaver fleet had just been wiped from existence. She turned to her communications officer. "Transmit our final message." The signal was broadcasted across every known sector of space, reaching every government, every pirate faction, every raider who had ever considered preying on humans. The message was simple. "This is what happens when you take our children. No more words. No declarations of war. No negotiations." Because there was nothing more to say. Humanity had spoken, and the galaxy listened. The reckoning begins. The aftermath of the hunt. The Shadow Fang was no longer a ship. It was a tomb. The once feared Crest Alliance slaver vessel, infamous for slipping in and out of human space without consequence, now hung lifeless in the void. Its engines had been disabled with surgical precision, its crew neutralized, its cargo rescued. For all their planning, for all their confidence in their ability to escape, the slavers had made a fatal mistake. They had believed humanity was like any other species. They had believed that the Galactic Council's rules applied to them. They had never understood the truth. Humanity's laws and diplomacy meant nothing when their children were threatened. And now, the galaxy was beginning to realize what that meant. The final moments of the Shadow Fang. Captain Raxer Ven's body floated lifelessly in the command chamber, his fate a warning to all who would dare follow in his footsteps. His ship had become a message, one that humanity had no need to speak aloud, because actions spoke louder than words. One by one, the surviving members of his crew were rounded up, shackled, and forced onto transport vessels. Unlike their captain, they had been spared for now. Aboard the Terran flagship Revenant, Admiral Jonas Greaves stood before a massive holographic projection of the Shadow Fang's ruins, his expression unreadable. His second-in-command, Commander Sarah Lorne, approached. "Prisoner containment secured. The children have been extracted safely and are en route to Eden's Reach. They're unharmed, just shaken." Greaves exhaled slowly. "Good." There was a long pause before Lorne spoke again. "What do we do with the prisoners?" A cold silence settled over the bridge. Greaves didn't answer right away. Instead, he studied the incoming transmissions from across human space. Messages from planetary governors, defense ministers, military commanders. Every single one was asking the same thing. Who else is responsible? Because this wasn't just about one slaver ship. The Crest Alliance wasn't a single entity. It was a sprawling network, a web of black market dealers, corrupt planetary officials, hidden financiers, all of whom had profited from the trafficking of sentient beings. And now, they had become the hunted. Greaves turned to Lorne. "The prisoners will be transferred to lunar detainment for interrogation." His voice was calm. "I want names. I want supply routes. I want to know every last detail about how this operation worked." Lorne nodded. "And when we have everything?" Greaves' gaze hardened. "We burn them all." A message that echoes across the stars. The Galactic Council was in chaos. The transmission from humanity's fleet had spread far beyond its intended reach. Every government, every species, every faction with even a passing interest in interstellar affairs had seen the footage. The lifeless Shadow Fang, now little more than wreckage. The rescue of the children, who were now safely back in human space. the silent, overwhelming efficiency of the Terran response. They hadn't waged a war. They hadn't given ultimatums. They had acted, and they had won. High Arbitrator Velkin of the Seraph Dominion stood at the center of the Galactic Council chamber, his silvered skin almost translucent with stress. He had tried, desperately, to prevent exactly this kind of escalation. But now it was too late. The representatives of hundreds of species sat in stunned silence, reading over the detailed reports of the human counterattack. Velkin broke the silence first. "We must intervene." A murmur of uneasy agreement rippled through the chamber. The avian diplomat from the Zorani Concord fluffed her feathers nervously. "Intervene? You mean against the humans?" Velkin hesitated. That wasn't what he meant. Not at all. "No," he said finally. "We must ensure this never happens again." His voice grew grim. "Because if it does, there may be no galaxy left to govern." He gestured toward a holographic display, showing the latest human fleet movements. It was no longer just a single task force. Humanity was mobilizing. Hundreds of privateer fleets, planetary defense forces, mercenary groups loyal to the Terran Republic. All of them had begun to mobilize for war. Not against the Galactic Council, not against any empire or coalition, but against the entire slaver network. The Crest Alliance was only the beginning. And the Council knew it, because when humans declared war on something, they did not stop. The beginning of the end for the slaver trade. Across the outer rim of known space, the repercussions of the attack on Eden's Reach were spreading like wildfire. The once powerful slaver rings were collapsing overnight. Planetary officials who had secretly profited from human trafficking were turning themselves in, terrified of what might happen if humanity found them first. Pirate factions abandoned their hideouts, fleeing deeper into uncharted space, praying that they wouldn't be next. Corporate executives who had funded illegal operations suddenly found their assets frozen, their banking accounts wiped clean by unknown cyber attacks. No one had ordered these things to happen. There had been no formal declaration of war. And that was what made it terrifying. Humanity had simply decided that they were done tolerating the existence of slavers in the galaxy. And now, they were removing them. The next target. On Luna Command Station, Admiral Helena Drake stood before a massive glowing star map, red dots indicating the remaining strongholds of the Crest Alliance. Beside her, Intelligence Officer Marcus Thorne adjusted his data tablet. "We've confirmed the locations of 4 primary Crest Alliance operations. If we hit them now, before they relocate." Drake nodded. "Do it." Thorne hesitated. "You don't want to consult with the Council first." Drake turned to him, her expression unreadable. "The Council had their chance to stop this years ago. They failed." Her voice turned cold. "Now we do things our way." She tapped the star map, highlighting a distant system, the location of the Crest Alliance's largest stronghold. It wasn't just a slaver base. It was the center of their operations, and it was about to become nothing but dust. Drake turned to her communications officer. "Send the orders. Deploy the fleets." Across the galaxy, the Terran war machine moved. Because when humanity decided to end something, they never left the job half finished.